wee. This is so good. This is good news. He defeats Bolsonaro, and Bolsonaro is out of here. Let's put up the shot of how close this race really was. I mean, they were fighting tooth and nail in this race, and luckily, the freedom fighting progressive in this case, go ahead, Brazil. We got a lot to learn from you. Actually won this race. And thousands of Brazilians are now celebrating this victory. It was narrow, but it is a victory nonetheless. Take a look at this. Yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful sight. And it marks a return for Lula, who was Brazil's president from 2003 to 2010 when he had great success. A former union leader born into poverty, Lula organized strikes against Brazil's military government in the 1970s. His two-term presidency was marked by a commodity-driven economic boom, and he left office with record popularity. For months, his opponent, Bolsonaro, peddled conspiracy theories similar to what we went through in this country about election fraud and calling for violence if he lost. Not what we went through, what we are going through, Jessica, right? Even at this moment, having a former president that believes such conspiracy theories and having a GOP right now pushing these conspiracy theories and at times calling for violence.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a huge win. I remember when Lula was originally put in prison in Brazil on charges that were ridiculous, right? This is what they do to politicians that are fighting for the people and fighting against corporations. And we know that he was annulled from those charges, so they were found to be false. But leaving office in 2011 with 90% popularity, he promised higher public spending. He had record poverty loss in Brazil because of his welfare programs. And then for people to take him out of office on ridiculous charges is insane. But I heard someone call this the CIA flop era in Latin America as we see more and more leftists winning, which is really good to see. And we can all learn from his message, which was just to everyday people, you deserve the basic freedom to have good meals and hang out with your family. Really simple message, but something that's not guaranteed for all people, even in the United States.
That's exactly right, and that is the message. Clean air, clean water, clean food, just the basics. Even before we start reaching high, we just wanna deal with the basics first. And going back to what Bolsonaro and his peddling of misinformation, disinformation, even telling people to get violent if they needed to. On Sunday, July 24th, in front of a mass audience, Bolsonaro called on his supporters to fill the streets on September the 7th in order to back his fabricated claims that the October election will be rigged. Ooh, that sounds exactly like this brother was taking a page out of the playbook of Donald J. Trump. Bolsonaro told a crowd to go to the streets one last time to target the Supreme Court, whose members he called a few black-clad deaf people who must understand what is the voice of the people, must understand the executive alongside Congress. This does sound very, very familiar. I wonder if Bolsonaro could hear the voice of the people. They have spoken, and Lula is back in office. Yes, he is. Let's put up this headline. Brazil, Bolsonaro threatens democratic rule, harasses Supreme Court, signals he may cancel elections, violates free speech. This is coming from Human Watch. I mean, just the fact that he feels as though he can do this, that he has that type of power. We know the quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And certainly Bolsonaro was using his power, attempting to use his power to amp up people, again, who may be predisposed to the kind of message that he was putting out and causing all kinds of confusion and dismay in Brazil. Another headline, Brazil's Bolsonaro, quote, bored by questions on COVID-19 death toll, the world's second highest. So he couldn't be bothered with that. Currently, 601,000 people have died 601,000 people have died from COVID-19 in Brazil, with over 21.5 million cases total in Brazil. Those are the kinds of things that Bolsonaro should have been focused on instead of conspiracy theories. He could have been answering the needs of the people. And what an awesome opportunity for any leader in the backdrop of COVID-19, or at the height of it, and even now in the shadow of it, because it's not gone, to do great and wonderful things for the people. But oh no, he was bored. And now with a true progressive in office, back in office in Brazil, the 77-year-old left this campaign on policies including exempting the lowest earners from income tax, raising the minimum wage, and upping investments in public services to create new jobs. Lula used his victory address to pledge to combat climate change and deforestation, issues observers say have not just been sidelined, but severely worsened under Bolsonaro's tenure. I mean, Jessica, it sounds as though the president-elect is raring to go and to continue where he left off and to do the things that any leader should do in times like these.
Yeah, I mean, Bolsonaro was burning rainforest, and Lula's win is a win for everyone around the world, because you'll hear people always say that the Amazon rainforest is the lungs of the world. The way that the rainforest absorbs carbon and emits oxygen is very important for our survival and reducing carbon emissions across the entire world. And so he was burning up rainforest to make more room for beef farming and grazing, which is insane. His priority was to export more beef as a commodity. What Lula's interested in is truly what is best for the people, not just in Brazil, but in the entire world, because he's really committed to reducing emissions, but also combating that deforestation. So a win for Lula is a win for all of us.
Yeah, it is. And to have his voice, not only in his country, but on the world stage, pushing other world leaders to do the same. I have many fantasies, but one of them is to see world leaders come together to deal with climate chaos, Jessica, in a very big way. You know, leaders often come together in times of war. You have allies come together. Why can't we come together to do something about what impacts the entire planet, and that is climate change? And I could just imagine the speeches that Bolsonaro is going, or excuse me, not Bolsonaro, Lula will give on this issue and the influence that he will have on other world leaders.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big dream of mine as well. It's going to take all of us to do something about it. No one nation or group of nations can do it alone. And so, yeah, we need world leaders to be committed to it, and Lula's one of them.
Yeah, he is. That's absolutely correct. And it is the one thing that we do have to tackle. Well, not the one thing, but it's one of the major things that we could tackle as a world. Climate chaos has to be done as the world and not just a singular nation. So Brazil, congratulations. And to President-elect Lula, so glad you are back in office and cannot wait to see some of the great things that you accomplish with great people supporting you and around you. Brazil, we're watching, baby.